What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Season 2, Episode 3 of the greatest podcast on turf. I'm Ryan.
I'm Anthony.
And for today's episode, we're going to be doing NFL Draft winners and losers.
Winners and losers of the draft, you already know. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you're new. Check out the full podcast where we did an entire draft grades for every team. We took all picks into account, all trades, gave teams a grade. Some of them were harsh, more harsh than others. Some of them were kind of basic. The Patriots won. If you saw the last video, you know my reaction, but you ready to get into it?
Yep.
Let's get it.
Before we get started, we actually got some news.
Big news.
We just got our first sponsor. Next sponsor is
Little Italy Pizzeria, 2 locations. It's my family's business. We got one up at Boyd's Corner in Middletown. We got one Main Street in Townsend. We got some big giveaways coming up, so be on the lookout for them. But link in the description to Little Italy's Facebook page has our address, has our menu. It's my family's business. We got the best pizza and cheesesteaks around. I mean, I'm good at what I do. I'm a cheesesteak guy. My dad's a pizza guy. My uncle's up at the other spot. So be sure to click that link in the Facebook description. Check us out. Be on the lookout for the giveaway details. And yeah, shout out to Little Italy. It's also where we've been filming. You guys probably already know that now, though. But appreciate them. Appreciate my dad for giving the opportunity to sponsor us. So, I mean, let's get it.
Let's get it.
Cool.
To start us off, we're going to be doing 5 winners. And for my first winner, I think it's the Bears fans. I mean, coming into this season, it was looking like Andy Dalton was going to be the starting quarterback for this team. And they went out and they were pretty aggressive, and they went ahead and made a move and brought in Justin Fields. I think that's huge for their future, and I mean, it brings hope to Chicago. You've just had Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, now you have Andy Dalton, and now you move up in the draft, take Justin Fields, arguably the second best quarterback in his class. We saw how good he was in Ohio State, and if he can resemble any of that, I mean, you could see the Bears having a good quarterback again. I believe I saw the Bears have yet to have a 4,000-yard passer in their history, and this might be the first.
Yeah, I mean, and me and Ryan are usually pretty harsh on the Bears. We had someone comment on our last video that we need to stop bashing the Bears. So if you're watching this, here you go. I think the Bears fans won, and also the Bears. The Bears had a solid draft. If you want us to go more in depth about their draft and what we graded them, link to the podcast in the description. Leave and check it out. Check it out when the video is done. It doesn't matter. But I think the Bears and Bears fans definitely won, because Bears fans usually get a lot of crap for just being average. I mean, Justin Fields could be the guy that puts them over the hump to get to the next level. I mean, they've been in the playoffs 3 out of the last 4 or 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they're definitely off to the right start, and they didn't give up that much to trade up either. I mean, you're getting the second best quarterback in the class. Would you give up a first and a third and a fourth next year, and then, a third or fourth this year? I mean, in reality, to get the number 2 quarterback, who should have probably gone in the top 3 of the class at 11 for that small of a price, I mean, that's a win in itself. And just the Bears fans in general, I mean, I feel like they're very lucky, and now they got something to look forward to instead of Andy Dalton and Khalil Mack. I mean, Khalil Mack's good, but
you shouldn't mention Andy Dalton in the same sentence as Khalil Mack. Ever.
Yeah. But all right, we're going to move on to our first loser, staying in the division. Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. Trouble in paradise. I mean, it's escalated over just more and more. I mean, we knew that it was going back to the last draft when they took Jordan Love, traded up for Jordan Love, when all they needed was to help Aaron Rodgers and get him another receiver. I did see today that they were going to trade for Justin Jefferson in last year's draft, but it didn't happen. They were going to trade up and get him. But losers, definitely Aaron Rodgers. I think their first 2 picks was an offensive lineman and a corner, which I will give them the benefit of the doubt they needed. But that's not what Aaron Rodgers wants to stay. Aaron Rodgers came out and said that either the GM goes or he goes, and he's talking about contemplating retirement. So, and I mean, all this as a result of the draft and what the Packers have done in the draft the past few years. Not a good look. Definitely not a win. So I'm going to say that they're the first losers.
Yeah, for me, Aaron Rodgers is the huge loser, because he wanted to get moved, and since this draft just happened, it's going to be even harder for that to happen. I mean, now you're going to be trading Aaron Rodgers for picks in next year's draft, but it's much easier to have picks for this year's draft. And I mean, it just got released today about, kind of the reason that he feels this way. They released his receiver, Jake Gilbert. I don't know if you know this, but
One of his good buddies.
One of his good buddies. He praised him one day, and then the next day they cut him. And that's part of the reason that he wants to go. There's many reasons they didn't draft him a receiver the past 10 years. They did this year in like the second round.
Third round. Got him a nice little slot receiver. I think it's Rodgers from Clemson.
Yeah, but I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's a pretty big loser in this one. He still hasn't been moved. It seems like the Packers are still playing hardball with him, and doesn't seem like he's going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I mean,
in the near future.
I get it's a business and you got to do what's best for the team, but I don't know. I think the Packers aren't handling it the right way, and Aaron Rodgers is, like you said, I think Aaron Rodgers definitely is a bigger loser than the Packers in general, but I mean, you still got to think Packers fans too. It's like, damn. Like,
yeah, I mean,
they were playing for a Super Bowl last year, and now it's looking like Jordan Love's going to be your starting quarterback after 1 year after Aaron Rodgers had the greatest career he's ever had. I mean, the greatest season he's had in his career so far, and he wants out, and he's playing, and he's not gonna budge.
No,
I don't think he budges. I mean, he's contemplating retirement. That's how serious it is. So, Aaron Rodgers definitely a very big loser of the draft.
Yeah, I agree. And the next winner we're going to be talking about is our two favorite teams in the draft. His was the Browns, and I'll start with mine, the Dolphins. I think they probably had the best draft out of anybody else. The Browns were pretty close, but the Dolphins, I mean, they brought in guys like Jalen Waddle. They brought in Jalen Phillips, arguably the best edge rusher. They brought in Liam Eichenberg. They also brought in Javon Holland out of Oregon. I mean, they made pretty big moves, and I think these were all great picks. I mean, they got Jalen Waddle, Tua's guy.
Yeah.
It's going to help Tua's development significantly.
Absolutely.
I was giving them, criticism for not drafting a lineman with the first pick, but they ended up getting Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame.
What was that in the second? Was that second or third round?
I believe second.
Still
either
good.
way, I mean,
projected first round guy to some guys. So
yeah, I mean, either way, it was a pretty great pick. And Jalen Phillips, I mean, that's great for where you drafted him if he ends up being the best edge rusher.
But yeah, I mean, touching on the Dolphins, they did have a good draft. I think they were my third highest rated draft on the podcast. Be sure to check that out. Link in the description. But the Javon Holland pick was a little questionable to me because he's more of like a safety slot corner, and they did draft Noah Igbenogany at the end of the first round last year, so that was a little questionable. But I think they're probably going to use him more to just stick to safety, which I mean is fine. It's his true position, and I like Javon Holland as a safety. But other than that, I like the pick. I like the value of Liam Eichenberg. I like the value of Jalen Phillips and Jalen Waddle. I mean, you guys know that by now. He's one of my favorite receivers in the class. So I like that one. But for my winner, my favorite team's draft, the Cleveland Browns. The Browns had an outstanding draft. They got Greg Newsome at 26 overall. Great value. He could have gone a lot earlier. They got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who fell to them in round 2. Another great value pick. It did come out today that he does have, they found heart concerns or something in his medical evaluations, but the doctors cleared him, but his, whatever was wrong with his heart is the reason he fell. So, I mean, hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he can play through it, and especially if he does, that is amazing value for the Browns to have him there. And another guy I want to touch on, a guy who I'm very high on who went undrafted, Marvin Wilson. They got him as an undrafted free agent. I think he did. Actually, I think he signed the largest undrafted free agent contract ever. Marvin Wilson did. Sure. I don't know the numbers, but I do remember seeing that. But the Cleveland Browns, they had a great draft. All the positions that they addressed were major positions of need. They took, I think they got Anthony Schwartz, also the guy from Auburn, who's the new fastest guy in the league.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that offense, I mean, they let him run straight and let Baker air it out to him. I mean, I think the Browns, they addressed major positions of need, and I think the Browns are going to come out and play for a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, I agree. I've been saying that. I think the Browns, they got Browns calling the Super Bowl. I don't care. I'm sticking with it. So, let's see.
Tom Brady versus Baker Mayfield in the Super Bowl. Two of my favorite players.
I guess.
And then moving on, another loser, Tyrod Taylor. This guy takes a lot of L's. Yeah. This guy, the only reason I say that is because it's looking like Tyrod was going to be the starter week 1 because all the legal troubles on Deshaun Watson's name right now, and it's not looking like he was coming back to play for the Texans before all that. They took Davis Mills at number 67 overall. It's at the top of the 3rd round. It's looking like it's going to be another Baker Mayfield and Justin Herbert situation where Tyrod's supposed to be the starter. He might start week 1, and then he'll get hurt, or medical doctors will puncture his lung again somehow, and Davis Mills will come in. Davis Mills will come in and light up the show just like Baker did and just like Justin Herbert did. Poor Tyrod Taylor, he's a loser of the draft.
Yeah, I think he's a loser. I think he was probably going to start, and he was going to do the best that he could with the team that was presented with him.
The Texans are not even going to be competitive this year. I'll be surprised if they win more than 4 games this year.
Yeah, I agree. And with Davis Mills, I mean, a few people were really high on him. I saw in a couple mock drafts that he was going to be a possible first-round pick. I didn't see it. I know he's battled a lot of injuries, and I'm not sure he played a lot of football.
I think 10, 11 games.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know, though. Daniel Jones didn't play a lot. He's okay. Trubisky didn't play a lot. He made playoffs 3 out of his 4 years. No like, big-name guys, but still, it's like, I'm a man of principle.
But, I mean, Tyrod, he's definitely a loser. He was going to start, most likely, and they kind of just took that away from him. At this point, I don't know if you could really be surprised if you're Tyrod Taylor.
Seems to be a trend on what happens.
Not sure he's ever going to be a starter again. He might just start off the season if Davis Mills ain't ready.
Yeah.
There's a chance because he doesn't have a lot of experience, and maybe Tyrod can hold the job. But
same as what happened with Baker and Justin Herbert.
Yeah,
The Herbert situation was a little different, just because that was on the doctors. But it's not funny. I'm sorry, knock on wood, but yeah.
I'll just go ahead and jump to the next winner. Kind of in a similar situation, Matt Ryan. There was reports, well, not reports, but I mean, a lot of people expected that the Falcons were going to take the next quarterback to replace Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's due for a lot of money, and they were thinking that, Matt Ryan's going to get cut and replaced, but looks like that's not the case. They actually got Matt Ryan, a pretty good weapon in Kyle Pitts. The offense is revamped. Matt Ryan's got Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Kyle Pitts. You can definitely look out for Matt Ryan in fantasy this year.
Probably.
Just throwing it out there. But Matt Ryan, I think, is a winner. He's going to keep his starting job for this year at least, maybe even next year, because whoever they draft might not be ready. I'm not sure Matt Ryan's got it in him still. Not sure he ever had it in him, to be fair, but I'm not sure he's going to go win a Super Bowl. But hey, I mean, they're trying to get him there, so that's something.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur Smith, the new Falcons head coach, came out earlier and was like, if the Falcons were looking for a rebuild, then they hired the wrong guy. And I think that they made it pretty clear that he wanted to come out and try and compete for a Super Bowl when they did draft Kyle Pitts and not a quarterback, because I said it on the draft, and I'll say it again, Matt Ryan's due $40-45 million this year. If they cut him after this season, they save about $20 million. That alone is like, oh, we should probably get a quarterback so we don't have to keep paying this average Kirk Cousins quarterback to be average every year. But I definitely agree with Matt Ryan being a winner. He kept his job. They didn't draft a quarterback at all. They got him some weapon. They got him a major weapon, and they addressed some big needs on defense. So, I mean, Matt Ryan is definitely a winner on that one.
Yeah, I agree.
Moving on, losers, Patriots fans. Patriots, listen, excuse me. The Patriots draft wasn't as bad as I thought. There was some highly questionable picks, such as Ronnie Perkins, but I think the value was too good to pass up after reflecting. The running back we took in the 4th round from Oklahoma, I don't remember his name, something Stevenson.
Ramondre
Stevenson.
You're not looking like a great Oklahoma fan.
I'm not a fan of that pick at all. I think he's our 6th running back on the team because Rex Burkhead is not signed yet, and it doesn't look like he's coming back now that we got Ramondre Stevenson. And as much as everyone's hyping up this Mac Jones pick, I'm going to stick with my gut. I don't like the pick. I don't think Mac Jones is going to be anything. And if he proves me wrong, okay, good for him. If he wins a Super Bowl, I'll get a jersey and I'll cheer for him and clip everything I said bad about him and make me watch it again on a video. But I'm going to stick with my gut. Patriots fans, I mean, we could argue winners and losers for Patriots fans, but this one Ryan picked to come at me personally because I'm not a fan of the Mac Jones pick. But, I mean, the Patriots didn't have bad of a draft. If you want to see my grade, link in the description of the podcast. Be sure to check that out. Spotify, Apple, it's everywhere. But, yeah, I think Patriots fans could have gone winners or losers, but I'm going to say we're losers just because a few questionable picks we had, but mainly the Mac Jones pick.
I'll go ahead and be on the optimistic side of this in a way. We saw that Mac Jones could have possibly went into the top 5 this year, and the Patriots, they held back. They held at 15, and they ended up getting him. Not saying Mac Jones is a stud, but hey, if they believe it, and he is, it's a steal if you got him at 15.
You proved me wrong.
And then to touch on the Ronnie Perkins pick, I think it was just a value pick.
Yeah, I think that's honestly, 3rd round, Ronnie Perkins was there. He was projected to go second round, maybe even end of the 1st round. So
yeah, I still like that pick. Even if he doesn't start for you guys, he can at least be a rotational guy and maybe eventually get the job, but who knows. And then the Ramondre Stevenson pick, you guys have a big running back room, but they're not great running backs. Let's be fair. You didn't pick up Sony Michel's fifth option, and I don't think you will. You got guys like Brian Bolden and
Brandon Bolden's a more special teams guy.
Yeah,
Damian Harris had a good year last year. We bought James White back. Sony Michel's still there for at least another year. I get in our offense, we do use a lot of running backs. So, hopefully all these guys, hopefully I'm wrong about, but there's more of like, I wouldn't say it. It was like, I like the player, not the pick, essentially, is what it was.
I'll be on the optimistic side. You guys have a pretty good line. You've had one for a little while. Last year you had a pretty good one. And Damian Harris didn't set the world on fire. Neither did Sony Michel. None of these guys really set the world on fire. And Ramondre Stevenson could definitely do that. I think he's a tank. We've seen that in Oklahoma. It might work out, it might not, but just be on the optimistic side.
I'm going to rephrase my statement for losers. Not all Patriots fans. I'm going to say me. I was a loser of the draft. People are saying, like you said, Mac Jones was arguably top 10 player, and we got him at 15. I hope he goes and proves me wrong. I hope he does. As a Patriots fan, I hope he does go prove me wrong, and I'll eat my words, and I'll take my L. But I'm not a fan of the pick, and I'm going to stick with my gut. I don't like the Mac Jones pick, so therefore I, Anthony Lentrio, am a loser of the 2021 NFL Draft somehow.
That's reasonable. Now let's go ahead and jump to the next winner. Dan Quinn of the Dallas Cowboys. Look, he got fired from Atlanta after some very poor coaching decisions.
Yep.
But he comes into Dallas. It's a pretty good place to coach. Not saying it's a great team, but it's a good place to coach. Dan Quinn, the defense was struggling last year. That's an understatement. Defense was one of the worst, if not the worst, last year. Dan Quinn comes in and he gets pretty much whatever defensive player that Dan Quinn wants.
Yep.
That's perfect. The first 6 picks of the Dallas Cowboys were defensive players. Yes, there was a couple reaches, and we will touch on that in the podcast.
Link in the description. Be sure to check that out.
But without getting into depth too much, if you just look at the draft as a whole, they went defense pretty heavily. They got some guys that Dan Quinn fits the scheme. They got some big, tall, athletic guys. Dan Quinn likes it, so hey, hopefully he can turn the Dallas Cowboys defense around.
Yeah, they were all solid players too. They got 2 top 3 linebackers in the draft, in my opinion, Micah Parsons and Jabril Cox. Definitely address that linebacker room. You guys didn't pick up Leighton Vander Esch's 5th-year option, so maybe he's on his way out. You also got Jalen Smith, who's getting paid a lot of money, and he hasn't been anything special. And you bought Keanu Neal in to play weak side linebacker, and who knows, maybe now he'll be moving back to safety, or he'll still play in the linebacker role. Dan Quinn, pretty good defensive coordinator in my opinion. Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones I liked how they drafted, get a defense. The Cowboys defense was very bad last year. All the guys they got on defense were positions of need pretty much, except maybe the linebackers. I think the linebacker room, they could have used one more. But Jabril Cox, I think it was too good a value to pass up on. Was at the 4th round?
Yeah.
It's too good. Jabril Cox could have gone in the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd round. He fell to him in the 4th. That was probably a value pick. But I like a lot what the Cowboys did in the draft. And I'm definitely trending in the right direction toward competing in that very god-awful last year division.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Moving on, one of the bigger losers in the draft, Russell Wilson. The Seahawks didn't have a lot of draft capital coming into the draft. I think they had a 3rd, 4th, and a 6th round pick, or a 3rd, 5th, and a 6th. Didn't have much capital to begin with. And kind of surprised me, they didn't make a lot of moves. They did make a trade in the offseason and got Gabe Jackson from the Raiders. Okay, offensive lineman, addresses a need. But the Seahawks, they didn't really take advantage of their picks, really. Their first pick in the 2nd or 3rd round was a receiver 3, which, there was some decent value offensive linemen on the board they probably could have taken. But Dwayne Eskridge, he's not a bad player, but a receiver 3 when you have Tyler Lockett, who just got a monster extension, DK Metcalf, who's one of the up-and-coming better young receivers in the league, and who's their third option? What's his name? David Moore or something?
Yeah.
He's not a terrible option. I mean, he produces in the offense.
They also have a decent tight end room. I mean, they're okay. Will Disley,
when he's healthy.
when he's out. I mean, it's
They
a
bought
decent
back
tight
Jacob
end.
Hollister, I think, also, or he might have
Yeah.
left, but I mean, I don't know, but that was a questionable pick. They did take a corner from Oklahoma, Trey Norwood. I like the pick they lost.
Trey Brown.
Trey Brown?
Yeah.
I thought it was Trey Norwood.
Trey Norwood went to Pittsburgh.
Oh, well, they got a corner from Oklahoma. They lost Shaquille Griffin into free agency. So, I mean, corner, there was a big hole to fill. Maybe Trey Brown's that corner of the future. They got him in a late round. I don't know. But I don't think they capitalized on their draft picks, and especially Russell Wilson. He didn't get much help on the offensive line. When he was earlier in the offseason, he was vocal about he wants some offensive line help, or he probably wants out. So, I mean, we'll see how that unfolds. I haven't heard anything after the draft about it. So, I mean, that's maybe something to keep on your radar, maybe.
Yeah, for me, I think Russell Wilson is a huge loser. He's coming into another season where it doesn't look like the offensive line is going to improve at all. And it's just it feels like it's just going to be a lot of the same. Russell Wilson's going to keep getting sacked, and he's going to keep being not happy, and that's it. But he has receivers to throw to if he has time. The Trey Brown pick, it was an okay pick. I'm not sure if Trey Brown has it. He's an Oklahoma corner. We don't produce corners. He has some decent stats according to PFF. He was rated pretty highly, so hopefully it works out for him. You know, always back to Oklahoma guys. But yeah, I think Russell Wilson's a pretty big loser. They're not taking care of him like they're taking care of Pat Mahomes over in Kansas City, that's for sure.
Especially in the division they're in. You're playing twice a year, you're playing against Nick Bosa,
Aaron Donald,
I mean,
Chandler Jones,
J.J. Watt, now Zaven Collins, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner. You're playing against a lot of good defensive players who can apply pressure, use their speed to get around these below average offensive linemen that you have who can't really stay healthy. Mike Iupati, Dwayne Brown, I think, is there. Damian Lewis, the offensive guard that they drafted last year, they were all injured. And I can't really name any other offensive linemen on that team. So Seahawks and Russell Wilson, definitely big losers. I don't know where Russell Wilson's at with how happy he is or whatever, but I mean, it's definitely something to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And I'll jump to the next winners. 2 running backs in terms of fantasy football. So,
Fantasy football legend.
anyways,
Sorry.
Myles Gaskin and Mike Davis, 2 running backs that could have lost their jobs, but they didn't. 2 guys that could have lost their jobs, but then Myles Gaskin, he's on a Dolphins team that has a pretty explosive offense now.
Yeah.
They shouldn't stack the box against his team. I don't see how it's possible. You got great receivers. It should be Myles Gaskin versus a pretty weak box. And then you got Myles Gaskin. I'll probably give him, if they don't give him another running back, he's probably RB2 for me. But Mike Davis in Atlanta, he did pretty good when he was in Carolina. And
Filled in for Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey wasn't there. Mike Davis, I don't think he's going to be as good as Myles Gaskin, obviously. I still think he's probably an RB3, maybe a weak RB2. I think it's good that he's keeping his job. I don't know if it's going to continue. I don't know if they'll try to bring somebody in, but hey, he's a winner for me.
Big winners kept their job. I thought it was pretty much inevitable Miami wasn't going to get a running back. I mean, there was talk that they were going to take Najee Harris at 18 instead of Jalen Phillips, but they went Jalen Phillips. Looks like they believe in Myles Gaskin. And for Mike Davis, same situation with him. Falcons could have been in the market for a running back, but they didn't take one after bringing in Mike Davis from free agency. So I guess that's them trusting their guys, I guess.
And before we hop on to the last loser, one running back that did end up possibly losing their job, Melvin Gordon.
Absolutely. Yeah,
they got the guy out of North Carolina.
Javonte Williams, and they traded up for him, 2 at the beginning of the second round. Which is Melvin Gordon, he was already fighting for reps last year with Phillip Lindsay when they were both healthy. The Broncos did Phillip Lindsay dirty, but that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, they traded up for a running back. Melvin Gordon was going in this season thinking he was going to be the sole running back one in that offense, but
nope.
They like Javonte Williams, so they traded up for him. So Melvin Gordon's also another honorable mention loser at running back.
For sure.
But for the final loser of the draft, your boy, your favorite quarterback in the league.
Second favorite behind Matt Stafford.
Kirk Cousins. Big loser. Came out that if Justin Fields fell to the Vikings at 14, they were going to take him. They told Kirk Cousins that during the draft or before the draft that before the draft that they can get a top quarterback, they're going to take him. And then they didn't get him, so they went ahead and took Kellen Mond. What was that? That was the top. I think that was the pick after the Texans took Davis Mills, or right before.
I think they took him in the second.
I don't know. Might have been end of the second, because I remember when
they had a couple picks in the second, I think.
Well, I think it was when Kyle Trask went off the boards. One of the analysts was like, he got a text from a GM that said run for quarterbacks, and I think it was Kyle Trask, Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, like all went back to back to back or something like that. But yeah, Kirk Cousins, big loser. Being told before the draft that your team is in the market for a quarterback, that's probably not the best feeling. And then when they go and take Kellen Mond, who's a young developmental guy who they like, it wasn't the latest round pick, but it's still, if you're a top 3 round pick, you have a good shot to make the roster. And a guy with Kellen Mond who has major upside, young guy, he's dynamic, and he would fit really good in that offense with Dalvin Cook, Adam Thielen, and Justin Jefferson. So Kirk Cousins is probably on thin ice to start. I think Kirk Cousins will definitely be the starter week 1 unless he has a horrible camp. But if he plays average like he does every year, Kellen Mond's going to be ready to get in the game and play.
Yeah, Kellen Mond's a guy. He's super talented, just a little raw. He's coming from Texas A&M, taught by Jimbo Fisher, who also coached Jameis Winston. Jimbo Fisher's a pretty good coach. Yeah. He developed Kellen Mond pretty nicely in Texas A&M. Yeah. They weren't the greatest team, but in Kellen Mond, you're getting somebody that's playing against SEC teams all year. He's playing against Alabama. He's getting that experience. A lot of people were comparing him to like a Dak Prescott situation, and maybe I can see it. Kellen Mond's got a pretty big arm. Hey, it might work out. I think Kirk Cousins is definitely a loser. I think it's about time that somebody realizes that Kirk Cousins is not that good, and I'm glad that the Minnesota Vikings realized that, and I think that's huge for him.
Yep, I agree. Definitely Kirk Cousins, big loser. Probably, most likely, maybe won't have a job by the end of next season
as he should
as a starter. Ryan feels strongly about.
So winners, Minnesota Vikings fans. You guys should be looking forward to that.
Kellen Mond, if he pans out in that offense, that would be pretty good
for sure.
The Dolphins. Not the Dolphins. The Vikings had a pretty good draft though. They had a lot of picks. They got Christian Darrisaw, which we talked about more in the podcast. They traded back, got some more capital, and the guy who they would have taken when they traded back. So good for them. But Kirk Cousins, big loser of the draft
for sure. That's going to wrap up this week's exclusive segment from the greatest podcast on turf. So be sure to check out the podcast where we did draft grades for the whole entire class.
Yeah, link in the description. Like, subscribe, follow us. Don't forget to check out Little Italy's Facebook page, our newest sponsor. Link in the description. Check it out. Menus on there. Addresses for the locations are on there. Be sure to check us out. If you stop in,
best cheesesteaks in Delaware.
Best cheesesteaks, best pizza in Delaware, all that. If you stop in, you'll most likely run into me. So if you want an autograph, I'll sign you an autograph. But Ryan might be here also. So yeah, don't forget, show us some love. Definitely go show our sponsor, Little Italy, some love, and be on the lookout for some giveaways. We got some big giveaways coming up soon. So yeah, check out the podcast, link in the description, and we'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Peace.